Hi there, welcome back. This is Casey and I am doing a video for you today on a formula that I have put together for my friend, and this is a formula that will relate to the last iris reading I did, so a video or two back on the channel. If you haven't seen that video, I did a detailed iris analysis, and this is a follow-up in a sense, just letting you guys know what herbs came together for her formula. So if you are interested in a service, I have iris readings available, and as well I am now offering this, so I'm putting formulas together, generally 12 plant formula based on people's eyes. So it's not an iris reading, but it is a very affordable service for anyone who's interested in a personalized formula. So all of the formulas, and we'll get into this in just a minute, are going to be including a great emphasis on the kidneys, so kidney filtration and health, as well as clearing lymphatic congestion. And then each one will also have some focus on the endocrine system. And then just depending on what we see in the eyes, that will let us know what plants specifically for what organs will be used. So this formula, like I said, I try to stick to 12 plants or trees, berries, you know, all the different types and kinds of botanicals. There are a few more plants that came through very clearly for my friend that I had to bump out of this formula, and basically because, like, so for example, alfalfa is not pictured here, but that will be something that we're going to include in the female reproductive formula that I'm making for her as well. So these were the most prominent and readily available, and as well, this formula is special for my friend in that every single one of these plants are local to our area. So in doing this video, I have another sort of goal, and that is to give you guys a tutorial on, first of all, just beginning to get to know the plants that you're taking. If you're taking Dr. Morse formulas, I will let you know how these plants may appear in those formulas. And then also just to get you sort of excited, inspired to even create your own formulas based on your own eyes. So I'm going to give you some pretty basic guidelines on what plants you might want to bring into your healing and detox routine. So, but like I said, for my friend, for this formula, just because I can, because I know the plants very well that grow around us, I decided to do a formula that she could actually wild harvest herself. And so even some of these plants are growing on her own land. So that would be the first guideline for you is, you know, there are several hundreds of thousands of plants that we think of as weeds, and so those would be more generally available to all of us. So most of the weeds are growing on all of the continents excluding Antarctica. So yeah, a lot of these are weeds. They're not native to our area, but they do grow in our area. And then there are a few other that are actually native to our area. And just for your information, we are living in the very northernmost part of California. So I will let you know when we get to those plants what those are specifically that are native to this area. And yeah, so, but that would be the first, one of the first guidelines is what plants are growing around you. And speaking to the weeds, we all, pretty much most of us, have things like chicory, things like dandelion, certainly stinging nettle, mullein, and burdock are what I'm seeing. Also thistle, and also rose a lot of times can grow outside of its native territory as well. So those are the plants I'm seeing just from this picture here. But you will also be interested to find out what might be native to your area. And not only that, what kind of area are you living in? Are you living in the city? Are you living in the country? A lot of times when I put formulas together for people, it does sort of come into play at times. You know, the plants that are willing and able, like dandelion, to grow through a crack in the sidewalk, a lot of times those are very good matches for people who are also growing close to sidewalks and living near concrete. And these plants will have a special medicine in those circumstances. And that said, it does bring to mind a concept that I see quite often in the contemplating of what plants to be using and what formulas related to what person and what kind of imbalances they have. And that is essentially the nature of weeds and how they grow is representative of, so how weeds heal, how the earth heals through her plants. What are those plants doing? So a lot of times they are coming in after burns, after damage, after injury to the earth, after, you know, cutting and building roads, and just it in all sense the disturbing of the natural ecosystem. That's when weeds come in, and that's where they flourish for the most part. So how does that relate to how we as humans also heal from the damage that we have been subjected to, especially in terms of our DNA? So we'll take a look more specifically at some of these plants that are considered weeds and how they're healing the earth and how that may be reflecting the healing capacity that they have for also healing the human. All right, so, and yeah, I mean, in terms of detox, the most profoundly powerful detoxifiers are weeds for the most part. And I invite you to think about that, and also to just begin this journey of looking around you. And I can't even tell you, especially just for me in my life, what connecting with local plants and the plants that are growing around me has done in terms of inspiring myself and empowering myself to use those plants in many different ways on my journey, for my journey. So, all right, let's see here. How shall we go about this? Every single formula is going to have an emphasis on the kidneys. And in terms of herbal properties, these would be considered kidney tonics. And if you follow Dr. Morse, you know you have a good awareness, understanding of the importance of getting your kidneys filtering for everything. Every single thing is going to come back to the filtration capacity of your kidneys, and that also being directly related to the lymphatic congestion that you may be seeing in your eyes. So the properties, the main properties, I'm going to just go ahead and jot a few notes, and then we'll go through the plants specifically and see where those properties are coming in. And so you can see that in this iris we have, I would say call it chronic lymphatic congestion. So with lymphatic congestion, if you're seeing more white, that would be more acute, and then as it goes into the cream color, yellow type of color, we're going to be seeing more of a chronic level of lymphatic congestion, and then as it goes deeper into the tans and browns, we're getting into the more degenerative level of lymphatic congestion. In this iris, I'm calling it chronic, and we can see that in the color. So the properties that we're going to be focusing on, so the herbal properties, lymphatic herbs are referred to just that, lymphatics. So we'll have plants that are kidney tonic, lymphatic, and we're also going to be including some endocrine tonic, so glandular. And a lot of times we'll see those in the berries, but I'm going to say right here that the nettle and mullein, although they don't have berries, that there are the whole plant of both of those are used, but those are also great endocrine plants, as well as they contain a million other properties. So yeah, so we're going to have a kidney tonic properties, we're going to have lymphatic properties, we're going to have endocrine tonic properties, and we're going to have blood, so we'll call that alterative. Alterative is a term used to describe properties in plants that alter the state of health for the better. And most often that is used specifically in regard to building the blood, purifying the blood, building the blood, enriching the blood. So we have plenty of plants here that do such. Another thing that we saw and somewhat related to the blood is the skin. So we noticed a great emphasis on the skin ring when we did this reading. And so a lot of the same plants will be used for the blood and the skin and the liver. So I would say liver, kidneys, and lymph are three of the main things that we saw when we did this reading. I mean, for sure the skin was something that I was pretty focused on, if I recall correctly. And then you can see with the liver and the skin being very connected as well. So you can see also from the psora spots here in the iris that those are dark. They're very dark psora spots or pigmentation markings, and those are more on the degenerative level and very much indicating a weakness or a challenge or an emphasis on the liver. Okay, and then we also have a focus somewhat on the digestive system, seeing the central heterochromia or discoloration emanating from the stomach and bowel area. And then, of course, the radii solaris that are coming from that area. Okay, so let's get into some of these plants, and I'm just going to go through and let you know the main properties of these plants, and feel free, I could go on and on and on and on about each one. I'm going to try to not do that. So I do have for most of them their fact sheets or their bios on my website if you want to read more or just, research these plants. But I do have some specific notes on my website related to the detoxification properties and uses of most of the plants that I have on there. Okay, so let's go ahead and we will start. And I'm going to give you also an estimate of the proportions of these plants that I used in her formula. So just in general, the leaves and flowers are used in more proportion. That's how I put formulas together anyway. And then the roots, a little bit less so. They're usually much stronger. And then the same with the berries. Depending on what berry it is, the flavor, the taste, the properties, usually the berries and the roots are secondary to the leaves and flowers, but not always. But I'll give you the proportions at some point here. So, like I said, all of these are local, and for most of you, you will be able to find almost all of these plants growing in your area as well. And if not the exact plant, some kind of variation. So I'm going to start here with Thistle, because that's an example of, so I've taken actually all of these photos, and Thistle here, this is not a milk thistle, this is actually a bull thistle. But you're going to notice, like I said, that with most every thistle, and there are many varieties of thistle, they do have very similar medicinal properties. So while milk thistle seed, especially, and that is what I put in her formula, is the most commonly used plant, especially for liver. So the milk thistle is the specific species that's used most commonly in detox and healing formulas. But whatever thistle you have growing in your area, I've harvested a lot of this bull thistle because it grows like crazy. And again, it grows primarily around here. There's been a great deal of logging and disruption to the earth, and so we have plenty of thistle. And I've used the leaves, and I will use those in juices and such. But so she could harvest the thistle leaves, she could harvest any part of the thistle, but what's in her formula specifically is actual milk thistle seed. Okay, and so milk thistle seed, let's see here, is probably, when you think of the liver, this is going to be your number one. I mean, I don't want to say number one, but it's one of the very most top of the list used plants for the liver. And the seed itself it's fine tasting. It's actually pretty nice tasting. So you can add it. This whole entire formula is a good tasting formula. I think that when you're doing teas and infusion blends, it's nice to be able to drink them throughout the day freely without, grimacing from the taste. So, and in Dr. Morse's, he has thistle in his liver and skin formula, as well as his pancreas support. So this plant is addressing mainly the liver that we're seeing, the liver congestion and the dark sora or pigmentation. Milk thistle is also considered a neuroprotective, and I want to note here that you can see in the signature of the flower, in the color and in the shape and the way that the flower grows atop the stem, just right on top, that this is very much representative of the crown chakra and the brain. So we're going to be seeing through plants always, if we know how to look, that they're actually teaching us about their own, not only their medicinal properties, but even how the body works. So we're seeing in thistle the connection between the liver and the brain. And thistle is used very much as a neuroprotective, as well as its most well-known uses for the liver. Let's see, milk thistle has been shown to improve symptoms related to Parkinson's and MS, as well as reducing amyloid protein in the brain, thus benefiting those suffering from Alzheimer's. Containing antioxidant, antiviral, and anti-inflammatory properties. Milk thistle protects, tones, and strengthens the liver, kidneys, and pancreas, even increasing the formation of new liver cells. So milk thistle seed is one of those plants that's had the benefit of being quite popular in the scientific community, and thus having several, probably hundreds, I don't know, maybe more studies done on milk thistle. So you can research that further, but there is a lot of evidence supporting the medicinal value of thistle. Let's see, so milk thistle has a long folk history of successfully treating liver disorders, which have been confirmed by scientific study. The plant is also used to increase the production of milk and nursing mothers. So most importantly is its ability to prevent liver damage by inhibiting the production of enzymes that lead to free radical and leukotriene formation. It is an effective antioxidant that functions mainly in the liver. In this regard, it is useful in treating cirrhosis, chronic hepatitis, fatty liver deposits, so all of this about the liver, but if you're having problems in terms of digesting fats, this would be a very helpful plant for you. Inflammatory skin conditions and jaundice. So if you recall, I think, well, in the very last video I did, I mentioned that my friend had been born with a slight jaundice. So this is very much a great plant for her. And just jaundice being a sign, a symptom, especially in newborns, that there has been a lot of stress on the liver, and that there are enzymes that are coming through that stress and showing up in the form of yellowish skin. Standardized extracts of milk thistle are widely used pharmaceuticals in Europe. There they are employed not only as cures for disease conditions, but also as a daily form of liver protection. The plant appears to have no toxic effects, even when used for months at a time. So another consideration with these formulas that we're putting together, that you may put together for yourself, is, and with all plants, can you be taking this plant long term? And so in this formula, this is definitely a safe formula that she can be taking long term. And in fact, that said, I do believe that not even as magical and incredible as some plants, and safe as some plants are, there's probably not anything that you want to be taking every single day for years. You want to take breaks from everything. But that said, these are plants that are able to be taken long term. And not only that, the effects, the positive effects, the medicinal effects, are prophylactic in a sense, so they are preventing imbalances. They are building up also in the system a certain level of strength and resilience. They are giving the body much resilience in terms of fighting infections and inflammation, all of the things that bring on long-term illnesses, or chronic illnesses that have been building up over the long term, and then they just show up. So thistle is great for that, and may be taken in the long term. Has a nice flavor. It's sort of neutral in my experience. Okay, so, and like I said, it does mention beneficial effects on female reproduction, and so there are some elements, because we did, if you recall, And or if not, we saw a lot of signs pointing to the whole entire reproductive system needing to be strengthened and detoxed. So we're going to be seeing what comes through for that, but I actually have all the plants to put together a whole entire, just a pretty simple, probably about 6, 7, 8 plants specifically for the female reproductive system. But we will see some of the properties for that also come through in these plants. Okay, so next plant I want to talk about is Pipsissewa, and I'm just going to be kind of going around here and just seeing what's next on my list and it will not be in order of this picture here. So Pipsissewa, you've probably never heard of it. It is one of the plants that grows native to our area, so northern California, I'm guessing southern Oregon as well. It may have a wider growing range, but specifically it is a plant that grows in this area of the country, and it is used primarily as a kidney herb. So this picture shows more just this incredible flower, and the flower is, it looks a little bit bigger than it is in the picture. It's really very, very small. It's about the size of like the end of my pinky finger. And then you can see, actually, I want to erase this. You can see barely in this picture because the flower took up all of the space, but you can see the leaves here. And so this is the signature, is going to be seen primarily in the medicine, the medicinal parts of the plant that are used are the leaves. And you can see just barely in this picture that the leaves are leathery, so they're thick and they're a little bit jagged on the edges. And that is one of the signatures that you're going to see in plants that are used as kidney tonics. So Pipsissewa is a lovely, lovely plant. It is a little bit, it grows in places that are a little bit higher in elevation. So I have to go up on our mountain or up to mountain lakes, up into more pristine areas of the forest to find Pipsissewa. So it's not going to grow just anywhere. But that said, it does grow very readily where it does grow. So there's a ton of it. Whenever you find it, it's growing all over the place. So you don't have a hard time in harvesting the Pipsissewa. It is in the Ericaceae family. It is also known as princess pine or princess pine, and it is very much related to the pine tree, which we also have in this formula. So it grows beneath the pines. I think every time I've seen it, it's been growing among pine trees. And this family, this whole entire family of herbs are antiseptic and diuretic. They are safe, so there are no known cautions and contraindications, but it's very much used and similar in pharmacology to other plants in this family, including Uva ursi, Manzanita, and blueberry. Those are all relatives and very commonly used in kidney formulas. So let's see, we have, though, in Pipsissewa, It is less astringent than uva ursi with a stronger diuretic action and less irritation of the intestinal linings. And Pipsissewa is an almost perfect remedy, and this is from Michael Moore. And if you don't know Michael Moore, if you're getting into herbs, he has books. He's not here, he's passed, but he's a master, amazing, beautiful herbalist, and he wrote several books, and it doesn't matter where you live. I don't know if I think he even has written books. I know like all the Mountain West, California, the whole Southwest, and I believe he's probably also covered the eastern portion of the country. So I highly recommend his books. But he says it's perfect remedy for kidney weakness or chronic mild nephritis and can be taken several times a week for extended periods. It can reduce the problem substantially. And yeah, again, it can be taken over a long-term period. And Pipsissewa translates from the Latin to winter loving. You will find it growing in the winter underneath the snow, or just kind of in its little snow blanket. And even in the spring, it'll be one of the things that's just usually still standing. It has overwintered well, even though it will produce new growth, so it is perennial. And Pipsissewa was used extensively by the Native Americans, and for the same things that we are using it for today, for urinary tract problems, also used for joint pain, inflammation, and swelling. It can also be used even in chronic kidney conditions, such as when people have kidney stones. If you have problems with arthritis or rheumatism, and so this is like, again, the plants are teaching us through their actions more and more about the body. So we know that the kidneys filtering out the waste are the primary organs that are helping us alleviate inflammation in the body. So we use these plants and we say, oh, well, they're very helpful with arthritis. Well, why? The reason is because they're assisting the kidneys in removing the inflammation that's causing the arthritis and inflammation. So just general inflammation. And so Pipsissewa also has a really nice flavor. It does seem like a lot of the plants that are kidney remedies are somewhat bitter, but Pipsissewa is not bitter at all. It's really nice tasting. Okay, so, and I don't see Pipsissewa on the marketplace in terms of, I mean, I take that back. You can purchase Pipsissewa leaves, but like I actually purchased them just so I had like a backup, even though I had wildcrafted a bunch of it. And the difference, and here's another reason why it is most beneficial for you to collect your own herbs if you can, is that the Pipsissewa I purchased from the herb company that I use was almost like, it was all twiggy and it wasn't at all green anymore. It was sort of brown and twiggy, and it just didn't seem to hold much value compared to the Pipsissewa that I had wildcrafted. But you can purchase it. So okay, so what else? What's next? I want to talk about Juniper. And this is a tree, and and it grows throughout the United States. I believe more prominently, it's more native to the Southwest. Wherever I've been in high desert areas, I tend to notice more juniper trees. So juniper is used, and so Dr. Morse does use juniper berry, and again, you know, with the wild crafting and this just basic superiority over the plants you can gather yourself, you do want to make sure that you're getting it from a good source, because it's important that the berries have ripened fully with juniper, and the process can take years. Generally, it takes, I think, at least 2 years, I think maybe 2.5 years or so, for the berries to ripen fully, and then they turn this beautiful blue color. And juniper is widely used for as a kidney tonic. And there are many other properties that juniper possesses. You can see in the berry that it is going to affect the endocrine system and all the glands, but especially the adrenal glands, and just seeing in the kidney tonic action. And then also I feel like it has a special affinity for the throat chakra, being that it is this beautiful blue color, and that would affect positively also the thyroid gland. Okay, so energetically speaking, this tree is extremely powerful. It is ancient. It's one of our older, our more ancient trees that are on the planet, and it grows to be a very old age as well. So it carries in a sense, much of the original blueprint of this planet, as does pine. And so that can be used to your benefit, of course, when you're looking especially at the DNA. All right, so juniper also is a tree of purification. So it's used quite often in burial rites. It has been used, it's been buried in ancient times. It's been buried with people for protection in the afterlife. And it's also used as, you can use it like sage, like you can burn it to purify and clear the air and also protect yourself. For me personally, I have an association with juniper that relates to portals, to family lineage, to closing and opening doorways. And it is, as said, it is a clearer and purifier. So it's used to help clear any kind of family lineage, any kind of ancestral karma. And let's see, the Chinese, American Indians, and old European cultures of medicine all highly regarded juniper as a blood purifying kidney tonic. So we have blood properties here, kidney properties here. One of the great European herbalists of the 20th century, R.F. Weiss, prescribed dandelion in the spring and juniper in the autumn for chronic arthritis, gout, neuralgia, and rheumatism. Juniper is excellent also not only for the liver, so it does affect the liver and her cells. It is also an excellent purifier and protectant from negative influences, body, mind, and spirit. And this is about knowing the strength of your roots, your lives, past and parallel, family lineage, and the strength and support of you in all of these embodies. It's about, in a lot of ways, survival and the strength that it takes to survive. And so Dr. Morse, like I said, does use this in many of his formulas. He has it in his prostate health. So some association with the male reproductive system and specifically the prostate. He also has it in his kidney tea. He also has it in the pancreas support formula and the male reproductive formula, and as well he has it in every single one of his kidney bladder formulas. So at least I don't know what he's on now, how many he has, but the notes I have here are pretty recent, and so he has Juniper in kidney bladder 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think that's all of them. He also has it in his high energy by nature, and that's, I believe, a new formula. And of all these plants, I would say Juniper, yes, certainly taken long term, but and safe and effective, especially if you're careful about where you're obtaining the Juniper and the berries have ripened fully and properly. It's definitely, though, one of those plants in this formula that I would, after maybe like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I would take a little break from and then go back to it. So you can take a break from Juniper and focus on other kidney herbs, and then go back to it if you would like to. Okay. Let's jump up to Horsetail, and I believe that Horsetail can be found in most areas of the country. If you know your plants at all, you've probably noticed whether Horsetail is growing around you or not. It does require, from what I've seen, water. And I don't think you'll see it growing in dry areas. So here where I live, it's growing alongside streams and kind of boggy situations, you know, where there's a lot of water, standing water or running water. And I have Horsetail in her formula, and I have it sort of close to the pine because they are very similar in their signature, and Horsetail being quite an ancient plant, and I have it in here not just for the medicinal effects, but also for the ancientness of it. And Horsetail once, back in the day, in the dinosaur age, Horsetail was a tree. So it's come a long ways. It's traveled the journey of the planet for, you know, millions of years. It's quite ancient. And while it is not a tree anymore, it's more of a grass. It's fairly small. It does still hold that awareness and those memories of the planet. So I have it in here along with pine, juniper. A lot of these, well, mostly those, really represent to me the ancient wisdom that the plants hold and their ability to heal the DNA, for us to reclaim our lost DNA, our broken strands, if you will, and to evolve into the more crystalline, you know, fifth dimensional, at least at some point, human, angel human. So that is the main reason that I have Horsetail in here. And then along with that, Horsetail is used, it's not Dr. Morse, I don't think he has, oh, I do have a note. So he has Horsetail in the ultimate, this is a new formula, the ultimate herbal blend. So I think somewhat similar to the Heal All tea, but he just wanted to maybe make another one that was different, and he does have Horsetail in that, but and that's it. So its main actions are diuretic, so again, it's going to be helpful to the kidneys. It is vulnerary, which is another way of saying it's just an overall healer. It is tonic, so it is it tones the tissues and strengthens the tissues, and also astringent. It is used in urinary tract diseases, incontinence, edema. It is used also topically for wound healing, and it does contain Gosh, okay. I have a note here that it's the only living genus of the entire family, which for over 100 million years was diverse and dominated the understory of the late Paleozoic forest. Its origin is the temperate northern regions of the world, including the UK. And let me see if there's anything else of significance. It's also related to what we saw in the iris with the skin. It is used to maintain the health and vitality of the skin, nails, and hair for many generations in a number of world herbal traditions. And it's also used like in the New Age, like I was just talking about. It's used extensively in building the crystalline body or the light body, and because of the silica. So it has more of a crystal, crystal-like minerals in silica. Okay, and again, it's fairly nice tasting. I'm not 100% sure. I'm guessing you can purchase it, but it's really easy to wildcraft. So I do recommend if you have it nearby, why not? It's also, so it dries well, and you can actually see in the, if you see here, the little like stems, the joints. You can see the little joints, maybe not in this picture just because it's tiny, but if you expanded it, you probably maybe could, that it does hold a signature for healing the connective tissue as well. But so it can be used, and it's used well dried, but I feel like with horsetail, like a lot of these plants, the ideal preparation would be in a fresh tincture. All right, but since we're putting together a tea, we're just including it in its dried form. Okay, so I have next on my list here mullein. Mullein is, oh, I have actually some more pictures I want to show you guys. So mullein is growing near you. I can pretty much guarantee you. And if you don't, let's see here. If you don't know what it looks like, hold on, let me grab the collage I put together for mullein. Alright, so we have here one of my very, very favorite plants, very widely used, extensively used throughout the herbal community and natural healing, and especially in detox. So, like I said, you probably have mullein growing as a weed nearby you on most likely an area that has been disturbed. So, and my friend actually has mullein on her property, and so that's always a good indication, right, that it's there for you to be using. And for her, I'm actually going to recommend, and I rarely recommend that, this is just like a personal preference. I've become so sensitive to plants that digging them can be almost, it's just really intense. But mullein, I don't have a problem pulling up a mullein plant. It is a biennial plant, so it generally only lasts for, I mean, I think more than 2 years, but that is the definition of biennial plants. I've seen the same mullein plant come up, I mean, probably, at least 3 years in a row. So that will just vary, I guess. But the first year, so This would be a first year baby. And the first year of Mullein's life is as a rosette, and it is, you can see, quite crystally. It's so soft and cuddly and crystally. You just want to touch the leaves, and you can see in the signature of the mullein leaves when they're younger the inherent healing principle related to the lungs and the cilia in the lungs. And that is what mullein is probably most well known for, is its use for healing the lungs. It will clear to some degree lung congestion, and just overall as a healer for the lungs and the chest. It was used as, well, I wouldn't say like an alternative to tobacco, but it was used as a plant that the Native Americans especially smoked, and it's been used throughout history to clear the lungs even through smoking it. So I don't necessarily recommend that unless you need a smoking replacement. Then sure, why not, if you're going to smoke something. But yeah, so it's used primarily, it's most well known for its lung healing properties, and we did see that with my friend. Her lungs are in need, can benefit greatly from some healing. So, but not only that, mullein is, you can see in the second year plant, so this would be at least this one up here, the long stalk. I say it is related to the Kundalini, and certainly it is related, has been noted by herbalists that it is related to the spine. So it's used in aligning the spine, and I'm not sure like what the actions are specifically that enable that to happen. It could be that mullein is relaxing, it is nervine, so it is somewhat pain relieving, and the seeds even are slightly, I mean not even slightly, they say the seeds are narcotic. So it could be that its relaxation principle helps to align the spine, but you can see from its signature, I mean, some of the mullein plants that I've been around are well over my height. So they're, you know, upwards of 5 feet into 6 feet tall. So, and it's very straight and it's very stately. You can see that in its signature. So it is used for the spine, and we did see that in that iris reading, that there was some, and she did confirm that there has been some chronic pain and related to the spine as well, you know, the shoulders and the jaw, I believe. But mullein is significantly connected to the back and the spine, and as you go down lower on the plant towards the root, this is why I'm going to recommend to her that she actually pulls, if she's feeling it, that she actually does pull a plant, because as you go down the mullein stalk, you go down into the lower area of the back, so the lumbar spine and the sacrum. And so yeah, I would recommend that she do that. It's, I would say, the best time to pull a plant is let it flower, and, or even, you know, that's just, again, my personal preference. It seems a little bit cruel and unusual to pull a plant before it flowers, even though a lot of herbalists do recommend certain plants are pulled before they flower, just because. But I personally like to wait and let it flower, and so she could pull that, and then she could use it, she could dry it and use it as a tea. Mullein does contain some more fragile compounds related to the mucilagenic properties. So one of its properties is it is a moisturizing. It contains moisture, And in herbalism, they would refer to that as an emollient for the outside of the body, and then a demulcent in terms of internal use. So it is cooling and moisturizing to the body, and those properties are a little bit more difficult to extract in alcohol. So if you do a tincture of mullein, I would recommend doing like an apple cider vinegar tincture. But for her, I'll recommend that she just, pulls it and dries it, and she can use the whole plant. Mullein's really difficult to powder. You can do it, but it because of its texture, it doesn't break into a super awesome powder. That said, where is it in Dr. Morse formulas? He has it in his lung tea. He has it in the healthy joints formula. He also has it in the heal all tea. I believe that if you guys remember, or if you don't, he had comfrey in the heal all tea, and then some kind of complications, of course, of California, they make it hard to distribute comfrey, so he switched it. I believe that's what happened. So he now has mullein in the heal all tea. He also has it in the stomach tea, and he also has it in the lymphatic system 1. So it is a great lymphatic plant. And like I said, I very much find it related to the Kundalini, to the spine, and that is related very much to the endocrine system. So this is another one of those plants that, while it's not a berry, it does benefit the endocrine system, and it is a glandular. He also has it in the GI Broom and the GI Renew. And which ones of the GI Renew? He has it in 0 and number 1. Mullein is, again, you're going to find it growing in disturbed areas. So this picture here is from a little mullein patch that is near to me, and you can see the pile of like a burn pile. So this whole area was logged at some point, and then they just threw all their mess here. And I'm not sure, if they burned around it or what their plans are, but Mullein had plans for that area, and it's really interesting because there was a great mullein patch there, but like I said, with weeds, they come, they serve their purpose in enriching the soil or healing the earth to on whatever level, to whatever degree, and then they'll move on. They won't come back. Another weed will come in and have its cycle, and then eventually, I'm guessing over thousands of years, what these plants are doing is preparing the earth to receive her native plants. So anyway, in this patch, it was mullein, and now there's no mullein there, and it's all thistle. So the thistle has now come in to that area. Okay. A few other properties of mullein are diuretic. This is a plant that you could put maybe like a 3 or 4 plant formula together, and that could be your detox formula. To be very honest, I do truly believe that. I don't think you need 50 plants, and mullein would be one of those. Also nettle, also thistle, and dandelion. But mullein contains a ton of healing, beneficial detox properties. It is diuretic, anti-inflammatory. It is a nervine, so it is calming to the nervous system. It is antispasmodic. You can use it as an anodyne, so it provides mild pain relief. I would combine it with some other herbs for pain relief. I would say you would for sure also use willow bark. It is vulnerary or healing. It is also alterative. It is astringent. It is nutritive. So it is enriching the minerals and the health of the blood as well. And then, as said, it is lymphatic and also an excellent endocrine tonic. Okay, so let's speak briefly to rose. This is a wild rose, and again, I'm quite certain, fairly quite certain that you've got rose growing around you. And the energetics of rose are cool and dry. The actions are relaxing, nervine, astringent, anti-inflammatory. It is also nutritive. Rose is also considered an adrenal gland tonic. And of course, it's nice tasting, somewhat sweet. It's very, very high in vitamin C. Even more so, like a few rose hips will outdo oranges. So it's actually super high in vitamin C, and it's relaxing to the liver. So again, we have liver properties here. It is beneficial for people with adrenal fatigue, like I said, symptoms of heat and nervous exhaustion. So rose significantly decreases overactivity of the sympathetic nervous system while also reducing adrenaline output in the body. And again, it's a very safe plant. It can be used with children and elderly and babies, and even, I don't want to say, for sure, always check with your medical professional in terms of pregnancy, but I would consider it even safe for use in pregnancy. So, and it is a feminine, female plant on an energetic level. It is a heart opener and just, a sweet, lovely plant. And in this formula and in most of the formulas that I put together, I'm using, if I use rose, I use the flowers and the buds, and sometimes the hips as well. And the whole plant is edible. So, I mean, aside from the thorns, the leaves are certainly edible. Okay, and then let's talk about burdock. Burdock, the most used part of this plant is the root, and in terms of Dr. Morse formulas, he's got it in a ton of his formulas. He has it in the kidney, bladder 4, the lymphatic system, spleen, and so there are a few plants here that are specifically used for the spleen, and we did see that come up in this iris, so that's why I have it in there. But Dr. Morse has it in his lymphatic system, spleen. He has it in his Heal All Tea. He has it in his new Ultimate Herbal Blend. He has it in blood support, liver, and skin. So it's an excellent liver plant and blood purifier, which also affects the health of the skin. He has it in pancreas support, skin and burn, and his stomach tea, and last but not least, he has it in his pituitary support, which is really interesting to me because it's not a traditional use that you see so much of burdock, but you can see, again, just like the thistle, you can see in the signature of the flower that purple here, and just the way the flower is coming up off the top of the plant. We have the crown chakra, and that is related to the pituitary gland. So I'm sure there's more physical properties related to the pituitary gland. but I can see it more in its signature. So burdock is in the name arcticum is derived, so the Latin name of burdock is Arcticum lapa, or Arctium lapa, and it is derived from the Greek arctos, meaning bear. And so it is related somewhat to bear medicine, and I just want to note that because we have a lot of these plants are related to bear medicine. This may be something, you know, significant for my friend. I know we have a lot of bears around here, so if you go into the forest, you may well see a bear, which is the case, I think, in most forests around the country. But we have burdock related to bear medicine. We have Manzanita, also related to bear medicine. We have Juniper, also related to bear medicine. And then, yeah, I think that's all I'm seeing for now. Oh no, also redroot related to bear medicine. So that is what the name has, the word bear in it. And it is used, like I said, the root is primarily the part that it is used. It is an alterative. It is a blood purifier. It is related to, I'll read you this quote. So, the most popular Western use of burdock root is as a primary herb in blood purifier formulas. These formulas are based on the traditional concept that diuretic and alkalizing herbs will neutralize acids and toxins and expel them more quickly. The actual mechanism is more likely due to its mucilage, preventing the absorption of toxins from the digestive tract. So we see this in the signature, you know, that we're seeing in the digestive area in the iris. Burdock related to that, and preventing the absorption of toxins from the digestive tract and its diuretic effect. By absorbing toxins from ingested food and those produced by intestinal flora, viscous fiber eliminates the source of many of the toxins. This allows the body to heal itself. It's cooling, moistening, and nourishing. You can use the entire plant. It's edible. The burdock root has been used traditionally in other, especially Japanese culture, as a food. And a few keywords for burdock are strength, purity, rootedness, nourishment, and balance. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about chicory. If you haven't noticed, I will note here that one plant that I like to put in a lot of formulas is missing, and that is dandelion. And I'll probably do another video on that. I want to do a video on just overall diuretic and kidney tonic herbs that are probably growing in your backyard, and dandelion is one of those. So, but I have here chicory, her dandelion's sister. That's how I consider chicory is a little bit more feminine. You can see in that gorgeous cornflower blue color, it really is that pretty. It really is that blue. And this is a special plant to me personally. It is used more so, or maybe more widely known as in its flower essence preparation. And chicory is used for the purpose of allowing others to live their lives. So it's so it's used in helping one let go of people that they love, that they care about, you know, not forever necessarily, but letting people move forward in their lives so they may live happy lives. And it can be used in the reverse as well. So when you take it as a flower essence, it helps you to let go, and it also helps other people to let go of you. And because it grows so prolifically as a weed on the side of the road. I mean, it's interesting. It's like that's its favorite place is alongside the road. The flowers can be readily collected and just added to your water, and you can use them as a flower essence. But medicinally speaking, the root of chicory is more widely used in terms of detoxification. So all of the properties of dandelion related to healing the liver, I would say the key word with chicory would be liver, are also contained in the chicory. It's extremely bitter, and you can certainly wildcraft the whole entire plant and use it however you may. You can use it in juices and pestos. You can even if you cook your food, you can cook it down. I would say if you're going to eat the leaves in cooked form, to see if you can pick them early in the season, because they are extremely bitter. The root, when it's dried, same with dandelion root, it's so bitter when it's fresh, and one reason why it's really amazing if you can tincture a fresh chicory root or a fresh dandelion root, but once you dry the root, it becomes much more mild. So in this formula, this is what I've included in her formula, is the chicory root, and it's dried. Another interesting note, is that chicory is used still in Louisiana, in New Orleans specifically, as a coffee substitute when it's roasted. So when you roast it, just like dandelion, although they say chicory has a more better coffee flavor than even dandelion when it's roasted. And even to this day, it's mixed about 50-50 with coffee and served in coffee shops in New Orleans. So, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. It's mainly a liver plant, and a million other properties. I have like 20 pages here, but like I said, if you want to see more, you can check it out on my website or anywhere. So let us cover nettle. And again, this is a wild weed. It will grow. It needs to be disturbed. That is like what it needs to grow. It is, as we know, stinging nettle. It will hurt you. You don't want to get tangled up with it. And that same property, oddly enough, or not oddly, it seems like it likes to be cut, stepped on, messed with, and that's exactly where it grows, in areas of even more disturbed, more like violently disturbed than like mullein and some of the other weeds. But that said, it also does like to grow near water, so it doesn't have to be in these godforsaken places, although it will grow in those places. It does like water, and depending on the state you're in, like the geographical state, nettle will really change. So the nettle that we have here, that I have access to here, is not the lovely more feminine, more water holding nettle that I had access to in Colorado, that I've seen growing in Washington state. The nettle, I would say like the most perfect nettle might be growing in Washington. But the nettle that I have here in California is called hoary nettle. And yeah, so, but you know, not how I'm saying it, but it's spelled Hoary. So it's a large, robust, ballsy nettle that grows here, and it will grow in full heat and sun. And yeah, it's a really interesting plant. But nettle, like I said, it's one of the most perfect all-around detox herbs, and I think you could just take nettle and see a great effects in the body in terms of detox. It's also a blood purifier. It's also an incredible nutritive plant. I've used it extensively in foods, especially you can use it in pesto. That's how I like to do it. If you blend nettle up, you won't see this in a lot of herb books because they're overly cautious. You do not need to cook it to remove the sting. All you need to do is blend it, and that will take the sting out. So tissue, organs, and systems affinity, it's everything. So it's an endocrine tonic, all glands. It's helpful for the respiratory system, the urinary system, so kidneys and entire urinary tract. It's helpful for, as an endocrine herb, it's helpful for the reproductive system, and especially the uterus and prostate and the digestive system. It's helpful for the liver and pancreas, and as well the circulatory system. So if I had to choose two systems, I use it primarily as a kidney herb, nettle, but it's also very, very well known and widely used for the liver. As a diuretic and kidney restorative, nettles works to purify the waters of the body. So again, growing by water, showing this signature, aiding the kidneys in their role of filtering metabolic waste from the blood and lymph. Nettles is also considered a supremely nutritive plant. It contains a complete amino acid profile, as well as providing high mineral content, and so is one of those rare plants that detoxifies and builds tissue simultaneously, making it ideal for all cleansing protocol. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about nettle for today. Oh, I take that back. The whole plant can be used, and similar to most plants, but especially with mullein and nettle, it's like the properties change as you travel up or down the plant, and the leaves are containing the properties I had just spoken of, but the roots are really excellent for male reproductive disorders, or just issues with the male reproductive system, especially the prostate. It's used widely in the BPH. And then the seeds. So, and the hoary nettle around here has a lot of good sized seeds, and those are actually also very useful for the male reproductive system, especially the testes. So here we have another property that you can see in its signature. Okay, and then pine, we have an up here at the top, and again, I kind of spoke to this already in terms of the DNA and the earth and her memories and the history. And pine, of all the trees, if I had to choose one, especially when you look at the pine cone and you consider the pineal gland, is the most significant in holding the memories of our DNA. And that's why I have this in her formula. Also, she has pine all over the forest around here, full of pine trees, but specifically she has it also on her land. What part would you use? You can of course use all of the tree, but I don't use pine unless it's fallen directly in front of me, which it does. If you hike, if you go into the forest, you will at some point come across fallen pines, and in which case I like to use the needles. Some of the key words for pine are immortal, mystical, perception. So we have that pineal gland, that psychic sight, growth, generosity, strength. It's very connected to the heart and to love. Very similar, has some similar properties to our human DNA, and especially the frequency related to the heart chakra. So it's very much a heart opener for love, for connection, and also for protection. I see it as one of Earth's record keepers. And I'll read you a quote from John Muir. Few are altogether deaf to the preaching of pine trees. Their sermons go right into our hearts. And if people in general could be gotten into the woods, even for once, to hear the trees speak for themselves, all difficulties in the way of forest preservation would vanish. And then another, he says, between every two pines is a doorway to a new world. So again, we have this type of doorway energy with the pine tree. And specific herbal actions are anti-inflammatory, antiviral. So again, a protection of our DNA and whatever, forces are working in this world to tamper with it, basically, from time immemorial. Anti-inflammatory, antiviral, anti-tumor, analgesic, anti-catarrhal, so related to congestion and lymphatic congestion specifically. It's a nutritive. It contains in its pollen androgenic properties, antimicrobial. It will work as a purgative, and that's just the bark. It is immunomodulatory, so it supports and strengthens the immune system. It is diuretic, insecticidal, lymphatic, and anti-aging. Okay, and I think we just have just a few more. So we have red root. Hold on, I'm going to get that picture. Alright, so red root, let me label this real quick before I... So this is red root flower. And I will show you, I put together, because I love this plant. Let me see if I can, a little more space. Okay, well, we have, so, same picture of the flower. This is a very commonly used, maybe not so common, but I believe it will continue to gain in popularity. It's well known among herbalists that red root is sort of the lymphatic herb of choice, especially when you're dealing with chronic lymphatic congestion. So that's kind of why I put these pictures together with the iris, is to show you so we have all this lymphatic congestion, and it is, I would say, of the chronic nature, and it has the same color as the flower, almost identical as the red root flower, which is like the white, but it definitely goes into the cream and yellow. And there are other elements of this plant that remind me of the lymphatic system. We have these are like little flower, pre-flower, like buds. This interesting shape here. So it has a lot of lymphatic properties in its signature, but mostly the color and even somewhat the texture of the flower, and then somewhat also the shape could somewhat resemble lymph nodes. Okay, and it is used, so Dr. Morse has this in a lot of his formulas. He has it in blood support, lymphatic system, and spleen. So again, spleen coming up. He has it in Lymphatic 4. He also has it in the Female Reproductive Tonic. He has it in the Chemical Metal Detox. And he also has it in Lymphatic 1. And this plant is, it's actually an herb of commerce, so you can purchase it. It's rather expensive, and the reason why is that it grows as a gnarly bush. Okay, so it grows right alongside Manzanita, and I'll show you that in a second. And the two of them, in fact, I have plans to do a video on just these two plants, the way they grow together and the way they represent in so many ways the lymphatic system and the circulatory system. So we have the, let's see if I can, well, I'll show you in a second. It's very similar also. I'm afraid if I move it, it's very similar also to Manzanita, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But you can see in the leaves here, they are somewhat leathery, again, somewhat similar to the Pipsissewa and that kidney signature. And then here with Manzanita, same thing, these leathery leaves. But the way these two bushes grow together, they're almost indistinguishable. If you know Manzanita, which if you live in this area, you certainly do, it's not a super well loved bush for many reasons, but you would think that this red root bush is a Manzanita bush, and it's used mostly as a lymphatic herb, and the root is what is used. And the reason it's so expensive is that it is almost impossible. I mean, you need not just a tractor. I mean, it's gnarly trying to clear this kind of brush. And in order to access the medicinal part of the plant, the most potent part of the plant is the root. It's pretty gnarly, and it's not something that I've personally harvested myself, although there's an area where it's growing that it's been already cut back and cleared, where I feel like I might be able to harvest some of it. So the key with red root, however, is while Dr. Morse has it in a lot of his formulas, it's in a lot of detox formulas on the market, the very best way to use it is actually from a fresh tincture, and those are almost impossible to obtain unless you do it yourself. I mean, there's a few exceptions to that. Some herbalists understand that the most medicinal properties are from the fresh root. You can sometimes obtain it through them, but for the most part it's used dried, which is a little bit of a shame because, like I said, it's most potent in fresh form. And an interesting thing about red root also is that the leaves were used in the American Revolution. So this plant is also known as New Jersey tea. So apparently, you know, like after we dumped all the tea into the harbor, we didn't have any tea to drink. So the leaves are delightful. I love them. I think that they're so much better tasting and sweeter than regular tea, but it was used widely and was known and still is as New Jersey tea because it was used as a tea leaf replacement. It is also called wild lilac, and it's one of those plants that is native to this part of the country, and there are several forms of it growing in this area. Two that I know of specifically that are both bushes, and large bushes. It's not always this huge gnarly bush, and it's different species. But here in California, it is, at least where the ones that I know of here. But like I said, it is called wild lilac, and the flowers, you can see the bee here. The flowers are so fragrant. They attract so many bees, and they are They smell just like lilac. And the leaves, which I've actually harvested, I'm actually going to harvest a bunch, and because it is just everywhere, and dry it. So they taste like lilac. So while the medicinal properties aren't as concentrated in the leaves, there still are medicinal properties in the leaves, and they're easy to obtain and easy to dry. And I do like to mix that with Manzanita, just those two leaves together. So main properties, main keyword for red root is lymphatic, and Michael Moore says red root is a lymphatic remedy stimulating lymph and interstitial fluid circulation for tonsil inflammation, sore throats, enlarged lymph nodes, and for shrinking non-fibrous cysts. And then another quote, a powerful lymphatic cleanser, red root helps to shrink swollen lymph nodes and reduce an enlarged spleen. Combined with echinacea, it works well for tonsillitis, cysts, and infections in the lymph glands. It is very good for AIDS patients with a low platelet count, enlarged spleen, or swollen lymph nodes. So main properties are, as a lymphatic, it was used extensively by the Native Americans, the Cherokees, especially used in the Civil War for swollen spleen. And yeah, I think that's it for now for red root. A few more properties. It is also an alterative, antibacterial, antifungal, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, astringent, antispasmodic, hemostatic, expectorant, also a hepatic stimulant, so for the liver, also a mild hypotensive. Okay, and so the last plant is, since we're here, let's take a look at Manzanita. And again, this is local to this area and not well loved. I have to say, it's a bear to remove, and it's also prone to it's related to fires. Both of these bushes can be burned over, and they will burn very easily, and Manzanita burns super hot, and so it's almost like a fire starter in and of itself, and it can burn down to the ground and then grow back because the roots are protected. And so, but I still love this plant. I have probably a few hundred pictures of the flowers on my computer. So you can see this in the pink flower. I mean, it is just lovely. It's pretty much the first plant to flower in the spring. So it's like life is happening after winter. And anyway, Manzanita is, as it's related and growing, interwoven basically with the red root bush, Manzanita is for the kidneys and red root is for the lymph. So we have this dynamic duo, and that's why I like to put the two of them together, just as is, just the two of them. Manzanita is slightly bitter, but you can't really tell. Especially with just the leaf and mixed with the red root leaf. So in my friend's formula, I have just put the Manzanita leaf, but in the fall, I will encourage her to harvest some of the berries. So the berries are going to contain more potent medicinal properties than the leaves. And again, we have this connection to the bear. This plant is from the Greek, I believe, Arctos staphylos, and Arctos meaning bear, and then the rest of the word meaning bunch of grapes. So you can see the little cluster here of the Manzanita berry, and this is the most beautiful color of ripe berry, I think, and is very much related to the adrenal glands as they are related to the kidneys. And another reason this plant has such a strong connection to the bear, and part of its medicine and its magic, is that the bears around here, and you will see that in whatever area you're in, bears will generally load up on whatever berries are available, and certainly they do load up on the Manzanita berry. And the connection of the bear and to the kidneys could be explored, certainly, because of the bear's ability. They basically shut down their kidneys for the whole time they're hibernating, and there's damage caused to the kidneys from this long, lengthy hibernation. And I feel like it has the ability of the bear to rejuvenate their kidneys, to basically shut them down, incur damage, and then basically restart their kidneys. I feel like it is related to the medicine of the Manzanita berry, at least in this area. So yeah, Manzanita is Spanish for little apple, and you can see in the picture up in the upper left here how perfectly how it's uncanny actually how this little tiny berry looks exactly like an apple. And again, it is coming from the Spanish words little apple. And it is used primarily, like I said, as a kidney tonic. And it was used extensively by the Native Americans as well. Let's see, chewing the leaves of Manzanita into a poultice can treat open sores and ease headaches. Helps with stomach cramping. The edible berries are high in vitamin C and contain 3 times more antioxidants than blueberries or pomegranates. And it's, anytime you can get something from the forest, it's just going to have a lot more readily available, active, bioavailable nutrients in it, because it hasn't been messed with, it hasn't been tampered with in any way. I mean, Manzanita is often plowed over and bulldozed, and so that's true, but not on that level where it's affecting its medicinal profile. So there's just not. It was considered a primary food source by many Native Americans because the berries can be stored, and then you can grind them into a powder and do all sorts of things. But anyway, it's not talked about a lot. There's not a ton of information out there by herbalists on Manzanita, but I did dig up what I could. Mostly that was from Michael Moore. So, all right. So I am going to leave it here for now, and I hope that was helpful in some way. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye.